and from numerous countries around the world. Most of these countries, where they come from, are what you'd call third world countries, many of them struggling with a lot of poverty. Our essential oil usage has grown huge. I know you can't really see the numbers on this slide here, but that last bar was for 2017, where we used nearly 2 million kilos of essential oils. That's a lot of essential oil. A lot of essential oil. Now, I used to be asked in earlier days, in fact, not so many years ago, Dave, are you worried that you're not going to be able to keep up demand, that doTERRA will fall behind and you won't be able to keep up with this demand for medicinal grade essential oil? And you know my answer was? It's like, yeah, I'm scared. Because I could see our growth doing this, and we were well aware of the global essential oil market, and we knew that we were going to exceed the supply of some essential oils in the world. We knew this was going to happen, and we would not bring our standards down to use engineered oils, or certainly not synthetic, but even engineering of oils, which is the common practice with essential oils. We knew they had to be 100% natural. And so we began an effort in a huge way a number of years ago now, probably 5 or 6 years ago, to penetrate deep into this supply chain. And so we came up with a new thing. We naturally kind of fell into it, called co-impact sourcing. And what that's about, it's about, well, what really happened was we went into these countries and we were trying to increase the supply of essential oils and form cooperatives and start to produce a lot more essential oil. We quickly learned something, that many of these poor countries where we have these projects, and we have about 15 of these projects now around the world, major projects, most of these countries that were very poor had 2 things though. They had land and they had labor. They just did not have a significant market or demand for what they could produce. doTERRA brought a massive market. We brought a massive market to these people. And so this has gone on to be one of the most successful, one of the most foundational, anchoring things that we do at doTERRA. You're going to hear a lot more about this as time goes on, even in the next couple of days. So I want to share with you just a couple of examples, just 2. This is a picture back in 2014. Emily Wright and I are in Nairobi, Kenya, 2 a.m. in the morning, about ready to hop on this little single propeller airplane and fly from Nairobi, Kenya to, of all places, Somalia. And nobody goes to Somalia, but we had miraculously built a friendship and a relationship with one of the more powerful leaders out there, one of the more powerful sultans. And there's a funny story on how that started as well. I mean, who calls himself sultan? Right? This gentleman, I'll share with you briefly since I have a few minutes. This gentleman actually contacted me through LinkedIn. How many of you use LinkedIn?
Wow.
So he contacted me through LinkedIn, and I got lots and lots of messages from LinkedIn. And I get some pretty crazy ones sometimes. Well, this message was kind of crazy. It was broken English, a couple of sentences of broken English, and it was signed Sultan Yusuf was his name. And I said, who calls himself Sultan? Delete. Okay. A couple weeks go by, and I get another message from this guy. Broken English again, a little strange sounding, signed Sultan Yusuf. Sultan, really? Delete. And the third time, I got a message from him. Something just said, you know, maybe you should pay more attention to this. And so I did. So I sent a message back. A couple weeks later, he responded back to me. We started going back and forth. Pretty soon, I realized he's the real thing. And so we invited him to our corporate campus in Pleasant Grove. It was just being built at that time. It wasn't the beautiful buildings you see today. It was the steel structures. And we walked him around the steel structures, and we started to form a relationship. Well, he in turn invited us out to come visit in Somalia, right? Not a great vacation place. But So Emily Wright and I in 2014 took that trip to Somalia. Now, our essential oil, this is a picture here on the tip there that comes out on the right-hand side there, that's Somalia. That channel you see there is the Red Sea. On their side you have Oman and Dubai and places like that. Anyway, most of our frankincense comes from that top part, Puntland, Somaliland of Somalia there. And this was quite a blessing. I'm going to have them just run a little bit of B-roll here for us. They can get that started. This doesn't have any sound, but I shot this actually little camera that I had. So this is what frankincense resin looks like. It's brought, at that time, it was brought out of the mountains into a port city like Bosaso. This is in Bosaso. And it's sorted. It gets sorted by these women into 7 different grades. I need grade 1 for the high quality oil that we're looking for. We throw everything else aside. I need grade 1. And so we visited this country. It's a very hot, very dry country. When we first landed on the ground there, it was about 130 degrees Fahrenheit on the ground there, very, very hot. Those chunks we're holding up there are Fariana. The small stuff is Carteriac that you're seeing there. This is the wharf. Those old wooden ships are what they use. In Bosaso, those wooden ships are full of white goats. That's their main export in Somalia. We actually met with the Minister of Import-Export in Somalia when we were there, and did a little spot for their national television. Somalia, as I mentioned, is kind of a rough place. It hadn't had a central government for 30 years. And so there was a lot of tribal conflict and even warfare going on. But when we visited there, it was probably one of the more desperate places I've ever seen in my life. I've seen a lot of poor places that I've been to around the world. Somalia, though, took poverty and desperateness to a new level. It was difficult. This is just some pictures I shot of their dwellings and where they lived at the time. When we came back, we had some relationships. And we started to work with these people, and we made some real commitments with them. This picture here, this looks like a bunch of guys I know. This is actually a nationally historic picture in Somalia now. Let me tell you why. Those gentlemen that you see there, 26 of them are the major landowners, sultans of the areas where the frankincense grows. Never in their history had they ever come together as a body before. We got them to come together as a body and to work together. This is an ongoing challenge, but it's something that we're very, very committed to. You know why they're willing to do this? It's because of our pre-commitment to them on a yearly basis for the work that they're going to do in harvesting the frankincense up in the mountains. And when we asked them, how can we help? Well, they responded with a couple of things. One of the things they wanted to do is they wanted to educate their children. And they wanted to educate these children up where the frankincense is actually harvested, which is in incredibly remote areas. There is no education that happens. So we built 2 boarding schools, and one in Uruguay and one in Childeberg. And these boarding schools each hold about 225 kids. But one of the requirements that we have, Somalia is an Islam, is the religion there, and in Somalia they didn't believe in educating their women or their girls. And so we said, we will do this, we'll get behind this, we'll build the schools, if you will educate your girls as well as the boys. They did. They agreed to that. So 50% of the kids are girls, 50% are boys now. These schools have plumbing, they have running water, they have toilets. They've never seen that before. They're taught, a number of subjects, math, English, science, and other subjects, and first time they're being educated out there. Another huge need that they need was medical care. And so we built one of the first clinics. This is a picture of a clinic that was near completion that we just launched a year and a half ago. outside of Bosaso and Timorish. And it's up and fully operational today. We also are nearly finished with this very significant clinic. This is a large structure here, a large investment from doTERRA as well. Not only were we building all of the buildings there, but we are also supplying all the medical equipment and also the salaries for the medical personnel. This is built out in the Snog region, a very, very remote area. It serves a population of about 400,000 people that have no access at all to health care today. Very high mortality rate in mothers and small children. And anyway, if you have something happen to you in this area, an injury or an illness, you're 3 days travel in the back of a pickup truck if you can get a ride to find medical attention. So they're very, very excited about this. This is nearly completed. It will be completed near the end of this year. And this is, like I say, a huge partnership that we have with Somalia. And this is why they have the commitment to doTERRA and we to them. We want to invest. We want to bless these people's lives. And Somalia has a huge connection with doTERRA. There's no other company in the world that comes anywhere close to the impact that doTERRA is having in Somalia. Now I can tell you, this is a shot, that upper right-hand one as you're coming into Bosaso there. As we tried to leave, we landed on these little dirt runways. As we tried to leave, we went to leave Somalia, our plane wouldn't start. And what had happened is the battery in the plane, they have large 24-volt batteries, special batteries in them. It had literally melted or disintegrated because of the heat. Couldn't handle the heat. And so we couldn't go anywhere. And though I tried everything we could to get out of there, I quickly learned you don't do anything fast in Somalia. And so we hunkered down for another night there, Emily Wright and I, and sleeping on a little pad in this place. And the temperature cools a lot at night. It gets down to about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's wonderful. Just lay there and bake. But anyway, these trips that we go on for this sourcing, they're adventures many times. We finally found a couple of old Russian airplane mechanics the next morning, and they came and they jump-started our airplane, okay? They jump-started our airplane, and fortunately we were able to make it after a few hours of flying to another place to get another battery, because if it stopped, you're not going to restart it again. So anyway, those are a lot of fun. I want to tell you a little bit about Nepal. Nepal is another area that has my heart and soul and is very close to us. This was the first trip that Emily Wright and I ever took